important. All of these are actually filled right now. Kind of speaking about different varieties, etc. You can see a couple different here. So, for example, we have a 225 sherry butt, which is interesting. You actually have a named Chateau Talbot here as well, which is an instance of where we actually had one of these private bottling clients that bottled the product that came out of that, and we said, what do you want to do with it? And didn't care. And I don't think he understood how valuable that cask was, so we snatched on that as discreetly as we could to not indicate the value of it.
Which we wouldn't do to you guys. We'd be totally fair and transparent.
Yeah. We are ethical business people in all ways.
Just to be clear.
Unless it's a Chateau Talbot cask and we can grab our hands on it.
Yeah.
But some of these are really, really interesting because you also have some casks that have a little bit of sentimental value. So we're doing a couple of testings on some of these casks, but for example, this MDES cask is actually made on the birth date of one of our kind of largest cask owners. He's also a private bottler that holds a lot of stock here with us. And his daughter was born on, I believe it was a Sunday, the 14th of the 1st this year, and he called Stuart and I up at around 10 p.m. We drove out here and filled the cask on her birthday for her. So we are able to do things on a bit of more flexible scheduling. That was kind of prearranged. I just said, look, as soon as it happens, just call me and we'll get to the distillery.
We knew the baby was coming. The baby didn't come out of the blue, but
yeah. I don't think many fathers are kind of going, time to call the distillery now that my daughter is born, but I think he was very keen on the idea, so we tried to make it happen.
When you say you do testing on a cask,
yeah.
what does that mean? What kind of test?
So that's just coming up to its first 6 months, and so we just want to effectively, well, specifically Greg just wanted to effectively see, okay, first 6 months, am I happy with it? And then put it up to scale house for further maturation. We try and sometimes, if need be, take a cask down and say, look, just let's do a spot check test on it. Nothing wrong with it. We haven't seen anything wrong with it, but it's just worthwhile sometimes just taking a check-in on how liquid's progressing. We don't want to move casks needlessly, so we will refrain to do that, and we always let our clients know ahead of time if we are wanting to test the cask. And most say yes because they also want to see how their liquid's progressing as well.
Do you test empty casks too? Like, how do you judge a cask?
Empty casks go through an entire selection process. You will see when we go to the other building, you do have a selection of yays and nays. And traditionally we send the nays away, or we turn them into a number of different things, either cask ends or clocks or bottle openers, or we have a lot of different uses for casks. But every single one has to go through, we have a triangle testing process where it has to go through Greg, myself, and Struan, every single cask, before it gets approved. Same thing with any liquid going into bottling, has to pass through the three of us before it gets approved. And anything that goes on the bottling line for any of our private clients has to pass the three of us before it goes to approval. So, for example, if our client really likes the liquid and we don't, our name still has to go at least on the private bottling side, on the back of the bottle, and we'll say to the client, we will not condone buying this bottle, and if you want to buy it, we have to get a bottle somewhere else. Because even though our name is very tiny on the back, it's still our name.
Sure.
And you know, some of these bottles are getting sold for, you know, either super premium or at least a premium. You know, you have some bottles in there in those boxes right now that are circa 350 to 400 pounds each, and right now we've got about a stockpile of 1,400 bottles completed for. So there's a lot of money there, and we just need to do well by the client, but also by ourselves and the customer at the end of the day. So these are all internal filled, so this is all our own liquid. But over here is actually all external liquid. You have some really interesting casks here. From old Foursquares, old Hampden Parks. You also have some really interesting whiskeys in here as well. Some of these casks are extremely old. You know, as you can see, they almost look like they're an extra from like the Pirates of the Caribbean set. A lot of these actually spent a lot of time in the Caribbean doing initial agings before they came over to Bristol specifically, and then a number of different buyers pick them up. And these are actually all owned by the same individual that has all the boxes there. So these, in the next 2 weeks, are going into the bottling line as well.
So terminology-wise, the difference between somebody who doesn't own a still, which would make
Yeah.
you a distiller, right?
Yeah.
Someone could just, they could just buy casks from people, have a bottling operation, slap their label on it, and it's good to go.
Yeah, you need a couple legislative
Scotch
licensings.
Yeah.
So, for example, you could do it with Scotch whiskey, but you would need like a wild beer ideally, and you do have to pass a number of checks through the SWA, etc. But you could do that. You could do that with Scotch whiskey, become an independent bottler with Scotch whiskey. That's not a problem. You could also do rum, for example. So if you wanted, for example, at the time of your bottling, let's say arbitrary 10 years,
Right.
you go, you know, I see actually a money-making opportunity on this. You could discuss a potential joint venture or else where we represent you as the independent bottling agent, and effectively your stock, and we're independently bottling it on your behalf and putting it out to marketplace.
And obviously there is a difference between the distillate coming out, right, the ingredients and the quality of the ingredients, right? So there is a difference of the distillate coming out, but you could, I mean, I'm just, in theory, right, someone could say, well, I'm just gonna have a giant warehouse, I'm gonna take the distillate and I'll rotate it through different barrels and just be a bottler.
Yeah.
Do people do that?
More and more people, I think, are getting called out for it because a lot in the last kind of 4 years, you had some distilleries getting private bottlers buying entire months of production out of them. So I know a gentleman that bought 3 months of Gladnock's distillery time, which roughly equated to 40,000 liters, I believe. So he paid good money for it, but he filled, you know, 3 big trucks of liquid, so tankers, and then put them in a warehouse into casks, and just was like, yeah, that's me done. I've got a ton of whiskey in about 10 years time that I can go take to the Chinese marketplace. So some people do that. It's being frowned upon more because, for example, he was selling his liquid, Gladnock was selling the liquid for about £5 per liter per LPA. And we're kind of on the other side of the movement pushing pricing up. We're saying we're not playing that ball game of LPA. So the lowest we go on pricing on LPA for commercial is £20.50. If you want to commercialize product of ours and you want to go buy bulk of it, it starts at £20.50. If you want anything custom done to that above that, we typically charge around £24. So roughly between 4 and 5 times the standard of what you'd see in the current marketplace. But we are kind of part of that new wave pushing up. We think the right direction. It's at the end of the day, it brings value back into the marketplace and to our cask owners. So we think we're doing the right thing by our cask owners. If you guys are happy enough.